So I went up to the high tide roost in Kedah this afternoon. There was a nice group of about 7,000 or just over 7,000 birds, predominantly redneck stints and curlew sandpipers, although there was good numbers of sandplovers as well. Here's a lesser sandplover, about 1,000 of those, and just in the bottom right hand corner there you can see a greater sandplover, and there were far fewer, maybe 50 or so of those. Most of the redneck stints are in non-breeding plumage. Curlew sandpipers is interestingly still in a good amount of breeding plumage, but in amongst the stints this one really stood out. It's a second calendar year little stint in largely breeding plumage, although the wing coverts you can see are very worn and plain, which shows that it's actually a second calendar year bird that still retains most of its juvenile wing coverts. And that was the only one I saw. It's possible it didn't actually migrate from the breeding grounds this year. There was about 30 or so Asian Douches, all of them adult or sub-adult. This one an adult and still with a good amount of breeding plumage, busily feeding even though most of the other birds were roosting. They can really tilt their whole body almost vertical when they dig right into the mud. And they're very vigorous in the way that they stab the mud. A couple of Pacific golden plovers, a red shank with its back to us but facing us, and a few great knots in there as well. Here's another Douche, another Asian Douche. This one's more likely to be a second calendar year bird because it's again pretty worn on the wing coverts. Doesn't seem to have any vestigial breeding plumage apart from just a few scapulars, so most likely a second calendar year bird. Next to it, a couple of great knot and curlew sandpipers, red shank. Red shanks are the only birds where we're seeing juveniles so far this season. There were about 60 or 70 great knot, and in amongst them a few red knot. There are two red knots in this picture. A little turn just stretching its wing there. Okay, red knot sitting behind the great knot at the front, and then just to the right of the red knot, another one squatted right down on the mud. And here's a much more obvious one in the vestigial breeding plumage next to a great knot on the left. So yeah, there were small numbers of broad-bill sandpipers, curlew turnstone, bar and black-tailed godwits, whimbrel, greenshank. So it was a nice selection of birds for this early in the season. A few gull-bill terns have arrived as well. So hopefully this is a sign of better things to come as the season progresses, as more birds start arriving. Looking forward to seeing the juveniles of these species, which should look really smart.